How do you become a millionaire on a middle class income? Folks, that's what we do on this channel. We call our channel $1,000,000 Made Easy because I want people to see how little it takes if you can be in it for the long term. The spreadsheets we're going to show you can actually change your life because when you see the actual numbers, you will be amazed. What we do on this channel is use the actual historical returns for the S&P 500 for the last 100 years. So we're going to have 100 years worth of data, and we simply project ahead what people may have in the future. I want to start with somebody, let's say they're just starting out, they don't have a whole lot of money, they can save $200 a month. $200 a month, and they increase that by 3% a year. Where would they be after 36, each of these time periods up to 45 years? Again, we're talking maybe a 20-year-old that doesn't have a whole lot of money but can save $200 a month. Where do you think they might be after these different time periods, given the returns we've had for the last 100 years, and we're just going to project them ahead? Watch what the numbers actually show. These numbers are absolutely incredible. Again, we're looking at somebody that's 20 years old, maybe has 45 years till retirement. And we can go down to somebody that's 36 years old, that's 30 years old, that might have 36 or so years till retirement. Look at each of these time periods. Look at this, folks. $200 a month, starting out with nothing, increasing that by 3% a year because you are going to get raises as you increase in your work career. But look at these numbers, folks. This is the amount of money in this black row right here of how much money you would put in over those time periods. And in this case, this shows the absolute minimum in this red row, how much you would have in the worst case scenario in the last 100 years for each of these time periods. So over a 36-year period, in the worst case scenario, using returns from 1925 on, it'd be 848,101 over a 36-year period. You can see it right there. There's a graph just above the graph, 848. That would be using 1939 numbers. Let me show you those. This is the summary box for 1939. In 36 years and 35 years, you'd have a little bit over 1.144, but then you hit a bad period. But anyway, we just want to show you the worst case scenario, 848,000. What's the median in this column? 1.197. You get to $1,000,000 right here. In fact, right here, if I click on the 36-year period, you get to the $1,000,000 77% of the time, just contributing $250 a month. You get, that's color coded in green. You get to $2 million, 8% of the time, color coded in blue. You don't get to any color coded in gold, but that's in 36-year periods. You'll go out here, you see the different numbers change. 40-year period, say for example, you're 25 years old, you can put $200 a month in. For the next 40 years, you would have put in this kind of money. And this is the worst case scenario, 1.250 and 240, and this is the median, 1.875. This is the breakdown for the 40-year. We haven't clicked the 40-year period yet. 100% of the time you get to $1 million, color-coded in green. 39% color-coded in blue, you actually get to $2 million. Again, folks, we're talking about just $200 a month. Can you get to $1 million on a middle class income? Look at this, $200 a month if you have the time. Now, the next question we need to look at is what happens if you don't have these kind of time periods? What does it take to get to $1 million if you have a little bit shorter time frame? Let's look at that next. We're going to look at if you have from 25 to 35 years, but let's say you have a little bit of money saved up. Let's say you have $20,000 saved up, and you can save $250 a month. You increase that by 3% a year. We're just using lower numbers here. A lot of people have a lot more than this, but again, we're looking at somebody that maybe is in their 30s. So in 35 years, if they were 30 years old, they'd be age 65, down here to maybe age 40. So pretty much it's just looking at numbers for somebody in their 30s. What would it take to get to $1 million? Let's do this to $300 a month, because obviously you have a lesser time frame. So you can have less time for this growth to take over, to do what it can do for you. So let's go ahead and run these numbers and see where you might be in each of these different time periods. Again, we've raised the numbers a little bit to $300 from the $200 we saw previously because we have a shorter time frame. But again, we're trying to show people how you can get to $1 million. Say, for example, you have the $20,000, you put $300 a month in. Again, let's just look at the color codes again. The green ones show the how often you'd get to $1 million. Right now we have the 35-year column shown. I'm going to do the 26-year column. So 44% of the time, if you look in the 26-year column, you get to a million. 15% of the time, color-coded in blue, you get to 1.5 million. It's actually 4% of the time you get to 2 million. But you carry this across all the way through here, and look at folks. If you're like 30, 30, 35, 36 years old, you start hitting this 2 million. You start hitting the gold. Uh, a lot of percentage of the time. In fact, 100% of the time you get to $1 million because the worst case scenario is 1.204. 68% of the time, color coded in blue, you get to 1.5 million, and 41% of the time, color coded in gold, you get to $2 million. That's the 30 year. How about the 30 year? That's the 32-year. How about the 30-year? 90% of the time you get to a million. There's there's about 10% of the time you wouldn't quite make it to the million, would be the worst case scenario, 905,000. But again, we're showing how middle class income people can get to $1 million without having to save an arm and a leg. This is $300 a month, folks. Somebody making 60,000 a year can save just 6% of that and maybe increase that by 3% a year. These are the numbers using the 100 years worth of data. So if you're 35, 36, 37 years old, in the middle 30s, and you can do this for 30 years, this is the worst case scenario. This is the median. And this is kind of the breakdown so you can see the color coded. How often you get to $1 million. If it's green, if it's colored at all, you're going to make it to $1 million. If it's not colored, you don't quite make it to $1 million. But see how if you go out here, you get started, you can save these kind of monies. Look at what you can have after these time periods. I just want people to see these numbers. Let's do one more thing. Let's go ahead and change this to 35,000. I'm going to go ahead and update this. Can we up the numbers just a little bit because we want to show the importance of getting in there early, but also if you don't have the 35 to 40 years like we saw right here, if you only have like 26 to 30 or so years, what I did here is change this amount. Say you have 35,000 saved up already, you can save $350 a month. Again, increasing that by 3% a year. We always like to increase it because you are going to supposedly get raises, and you can increase that as time goes on. But look at somebody, now we're looking at somebody in their late 30s, maybe 38, maybe even 40 years. This is the kind of numbers, this is the kind of money you will be putting in, and this is the worst case scenario. But again, I want you to look at the color code again, folks. How many times would you get to $1 million after 26 years with these kind of numbers? 57% of the time you get to $1 million if you had 26 years. So that's somebody maybe 40, 41 years old. Here's somebody 42 to 40, no, 38, 40, 38 to 39, right along in there, because you've got 28 years till full retirement age. Look at these numbers now, folks. Look at this. How many times you hit not just a million, but how many times you can actually get to $2 million. In this case, click on this. 95% of the time you get to a million. There's just a couple of times you wouldn't quite make it to a million. That's the worst case scenario. Look at this, color coded in blue going down through. 49% of the time you get to 1.5 million. And color coded in gold, you get to over $2 million. That's in the 28-year column. This is how you can get to $1 million on a middle class income, not really having to save that much. In this case, I ran it up to 350, which would be 7% of somebody making $60,000 a year. You can do this, folks. I just love showing these numbers. That's why we call this channel $1 Million Made Easy, because I want people to see how easy it is to get to $1 million. Now, what that $1 million will buy in the future, that's a different issue. We always include the inflation adjusted numbers up here. But getting to that $1 million, getting to that status of being a millionaire at retirement, having $1 million in your nest egg, it's not as hard as you might think. Just saving these kind of numbers. Again, we do the from 35 to 40, that's just saving $200 a month. And we did this saving $350 a month, and we solved these numbers if you don't have quite as many years. If you're in your 30s here, this is more if you're in your 20s here. You can see the kind of numbers, how often you can get to over $1 million. Anything color coded means you're over $1 million. Again, right here, You got all these over $1 million. The only time is in the 26-year period where there's a few times we didn't quite get to a million. You still have some really nice sums, 1927, 987,000. But again, folks, that's what we do on this channel. We love showing people what the potential of what just saving small amounts, if you can get it in there, and even if you're in your 30s, it's not too late. Please consider subscribing to this channel, share it with others, let people know we run videos like this, just showing them that yes, you can be a middle class income millionaire. Thanks for watching.